All right, time for a hot take. I 100% think bringing the Emperor back in The Rise of Skywalker was the right move. However, the problem was that this guy that somehow manages to keep getting work is one of the most rapidly overrated and incompetent writers working in the industry right now. But Travis, what would you say? Thank you so much for asking. Look, I get it. This was handled incredibly poorly. I'm not trying to defend the way they did it. This dude is the antagonist of the Skywalker legacy. And he should have been the main villain through line running through all 9 episodes. And I think had they hinted at his return from the get-go, from The Force Awakens, it could have been done so much better. And don't get me wrong, retconning has been a big part of Star Wars pretty much since its inception because George Lucas didn't plan on making more than one. They just kind of had to roll with what they had. But I really think it would have been easy to retcon this into something believable. And here's how I would have done it. Hear me out. Now, the Emperor prided himself more on his planning and subterfuge rather than just straight combat. So when he drew these two into this confrontation, because we all know that clone technology existed at this time, that's a clone. Okay? You could have had it said later on that this Emperor here was the clone and the real Emperor was in that secret room. And when this whole fight started to go haywire, right about this time, he could have dipped out on a shuttle and fled the scene. But again, something like that would take a halfway decent writer. And I'm no super genius, so the fact that I thought of this is kind of telling. Plus, they did this guy dirty. He could have made a really cool villain for the first, 1.5 movies. But what I think they should have done was blended some of Ian McDiarmid's voice and likeness into this model to kind of, and again, I think this requires a degree of subtlety in writing that J.J. Abrams is just not capable of, that it should have been kind of very closely hinted at that this guy was a clone of the Emperor, but it has to be done just because this didn't need to be done as some kind of grand psycho-esque plot twist because, this guy seems to think he's the second coming of Alfred Hitchcock when he's, writing-wise, he's at best a TMU version of a happening era M. Night Shyamalan. And when it comes to directing, I'll give him that. He's great value Steven Spielberg. But had they put just enough of his likeness and audio mixed in his voice in with Andy Serkis's for Snoke and had everyone just going, wait, no, what, hold, dude, something like that, I think bringing him back could have been very easily, very well received, and would have had fans roaring to see the ultimate big bad of the Star Wars legacy back and ultimately dealt with. Now, did they handle the ending poorly? Yeah. But I really, that's my hot take. Bringing the Emperor back was the right choice. It just was not handled correctly. It felt like a last minute decision out of desperation. And they, like I said, the fact that Abrams keeps getting work baffles me. I just think he's way too overrated and not particularly good at his job. All right. Happy Revenge of the 5th. Y'all have a good one. Y'all be cool.